Hi,
Thank you,
Comrade
Aishwarya.
Narendra. How are you? I said, how are you, Comrade Narendra?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you, Aishwarya, and hello, everyone. Apologies at the beginning because we had technical glitches and we are starting a little bit later than expected. And I'm very thankful to Dr. Saulat Nagi for putting up with the inconvenience. And the plan is that this talk will be for about approximately 60 minutes. And then we'll leave the forum open for questions and comments. So the way to go about this is that if you have a question, please go to the reactions chat and then type it out. Or if you would prefer to speak, go to the reactions and put your hand up, and then we'll call you. Typing is preferred. And then and if you want to make a contribution also, that's the same. The procedure is the same. Just put up your hand or say that you'd like to talk. And please keep your questions short for not more than 2 minutes. And if any contribution is to make, you wish to make, please keep it to 5 minutes. And if anyone needs more time, we can consider that depending upon the number of people who want to participate. So the time at our disposal is what governs most things. So we tend to be trying to be flexible about most things, but these are the general broad guidelines. So I'll now hand over to Dr. Saulat Nagi, and we given the intro to Dr. Saulat Nagi in the emails. Dr. Saulat Nagi is from Pakistan, but based in Sydney, Australia, and he's been a regular columnist for newspapers and online publications, both in India and Pakistan, and he has published works on theory and the Frankfurt School and a few other issues. And his latest book is on the making of Pakistan and Israel. Please make Dr. Saulat Nagi welcome. And I think we have making a record of sorts, because to my memory, this is the first time that we are holding a talk on Pakistan in any left forum in India that I know of, for the last 40 or 50 years that I've been around. So thank you, everyone. And by the way, please unmute your microphones while you're listening, and unmute it when you want to ask a question. Thank you very much. And I'll hand over to Dr. Saulat Nagi. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Narendra. Comrade, you have to bear with my cough because after COVID, it is still very much there. So infrequently, it will come in between. So I apologize for that. Actually, I wanted to start it from imperialism, defining imperialism, because to me, all the divisions and partitions of the world took place under the malignant gaze of capitalism, and capitalism had a sort of imperialist tendency. It develops. That's why I started with a quote of Rosa Luxemburg. She says that imperialism is not the creation of any group of states. It is the product of a particular stage of ripeness in the world development of capital. An innately international condition, an indivisible whole that is recognized only in all its relations and from which no nation can stand aloof. Now, it's a bit difficult, really, definition to understand to begin with, to the beginners, to the friends who are comrades who are new to it. Actually, Rosa just wants to say, or perhaps I would like to elaborate it in the next paragraph. Otherwise, I can simply say that, as Marx said, that capitalism depends on two basic things. That is on valorization and accumulation. and accumulation ultimately leads to realization of capital. So what we see over here is that it's not that what is valorization? Valorization is when capital go to the market, purchases the labor of a person of the people, and free people, of course, and then I mean makes a commodity. So commoditization is valorization. But then the next step is now he what should he do with the commodity? Nothing. Now he has to sell it. Now once he sells it, he gets a compound profit in that. That's which Marx calls surplus. And the most of the economists always thought that perhaps this stage was where does this surplus money comes from? For instance, if a capitalist invests $20, he gets ultimately 35 or $30 or $40 in the end. How come this money he manages to get? So this is the surplus, which comes through the exploitation of the working class, or its time, or its wage, or the stealing of its wage, or its time, or anything like, or both, really. So same holds true over here, that in the process of valorization and in the process of realization, capital exploits its own people, and then after it exploits that, there's a limit to it. Then it goes beyond its borders and finds countries which are non-capitalist, like Pakistan, India, like I mean, once China and all those countries, and then Latin America, and then it has two ways to take over their money. One is through direct robbery, which Marx says. Primitive accumulation, the direct robbery, stealing from them by force, by the gun and the barrel of the gun. And the other one is that how to dispossess them otherwise. And that disposition is, for instance, that through IMF, through World Bank. So these both things simultaneously go ahead. The Marx at one stage said that after primitive accumulation, capitalism plays a constructive role, but we see that primitive accumulation is still going on. And there's an example of Palestine and Latin American countries, and even the recent elections we have seen in Indonesia. Those people who dispossess their own people, and for the multinationals, they are still in power. Suharto era people are still back into power. So the dispossession will continue, and primitive accumulation as well, because the cheap labor will be actually utilized and to provide cheap goods for the West. So that is what Rosa actually wanted to say, and I'll have explained it later. Rosa wrote those lines when the First World War was threatening to unleash. The world powers were divided into two groups. Germany was demanding its share in the colonies, largely arrested by the Anglo-French powers called Allies. The latter were eyeing the embodiment of the Ottoman Empire, called Central Power, at its weakest, the proverbial sick man of Europe, and the liquidation of Austro-Hungarian Empire. Caesarist Russia was also in league with the Allies to claim a share in Poland and East Germany. The particular stage of ripeness in world development of capital. Now, this is Rosa. The particular stage of ripeness in the world development of capital had reached a point when the entire world was divided into two major imperialist camps. The US joined the Allies later. The colonies, such as India, had to provide the soldiers, making imperialism an invisible whole. So whole of the world, now it was a Western sort of a war, it was a European war, but it became sort of a world war. So the over-accumulated capital among the imperial power plundered from the colonies was stagnating. It needed a war for its realization. Now, this is an interesting point I would like to elaborate separately, because what is over-accumulated capital? This is what Marx repeatedly says, that capital is accumulated with not with the state alone, but with the multinational companies, with the other corporate sector, military industrial complex. So what they do is, as Marx has put it very nicely, that when this capital is over accumulated, since it's not being spent on the people, why should they spend on the people? What will they get? I mean, by making infrastructure. So what they do is, Marx says that if it is not working, throw it in the sea. And throwing in the sea means that you go to war. So they for the realization of capital, they go to war, as it happened in the Second World War, because America was stuck. There was lots of recession, and despite the help of the communist parties and others, it couldn't make any sense. So they decided to go to war, and the war solved their problem. The capital was realized. Now, the primitive accumulation for Marx is a sheer outright robbery of resources, as I said earlier, as it is happening in Palestine now. And it can go hand in hand with accumulation through dispossession, as I've already mentioned, which means stealing resources through IMF, World Bank, etc. In 1916, immediately after the end of the First World War, these two capitalist necessities made the Anglo-French imperialism divide Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Palestine, rich in resources and vital for the sea trade as their colonies. In 1921, Ireland was dissected into northern and southern parts. The end of the Second World War saw the division of India into Indo-Pakistan on one hand, and on the other, the division of Palestine. The 58% of Palestinian territory was dished out to 6% Jews, while 42% on paper was given to 94% native Palestinians. The division of United Africa. Now, we should keep in mind, Africa was one. It had tribes and tribal structure, and they were one. But it was divided in 1884 by the Allies, French, and all those, British. They sat back and they divided it in between. And that division continues even today. Almost all of the above mentioned regions were pre-capitalist one. Now, this is important, that capitalism went to the areas which were tribal or feudal, and their exploitation through organized plunder, which Marx says expropriation, was the salient objective of the capitalist accumulation through dispossession. Like all other dissections, now we come to India and Pakistan. Like all other dissections, the Indian and Palestinian partition also had a hidden agenda. The creation of two unnatural, insecure, and reactionary states was designed to impede the red tide emanating from the Soviet Union, fascinating the working class of the entire world. It had to be stopped urgently before it could overtake the Middle East and South Asia. The ironic and interesting part of both the Indian and Palestinian partition was to carve out an entity for a handful of Zionists desirous of Jewish state and separate country for the Muslim bourgeoisie, unable to compete with the Hindu capitalist class. while the people of both countries were never consulted, for the majority was not in favor of such an unnatural division. Now this is very interesting. We in Pakistan, the secular elements always talk about Jinnah's speech of 11th August, in which he said that it will be a secular state, or religion would have nothing to do with state affairs. But in that very speech, Jinnah stated something very important. Even the founding father of the new state, Pakistan, was not sanguine about his achievement, a verdict imposed by the colonial powers. In his famous speech delivered to the Constituent Assembly, his enthusiasm was mellowed as he stated, quote, "Any idea of a united India could never have worked, and in my judgment, it would have led us to terrific disaster. Maybe that view is correct. Maybe it is not. That remains to be seen." Quote finished. His apprehensions were not incorrect, but his inference of the future was wrong. Quote, "We are starting in the days where there is no discrimination, no distinction between one community and the other, no discrimination between one caste or creed and another." Quote finished. Ironically, he became instrumental by playing a divisive role in declaring Urdu as the national language, which immediately not only isolated the eastern wing with a population bigger than that of the collective population of the western wing. With a stroke of a pen, the majority, unfamiliar with Urdu, became illiterate and second-rate citizens of the country they helped create. Now we come to those parts of the country named Pakistan, which came into being. We see what was their position, for their economic composition, which was, I think, to my mind, is very important, because without knowing the economic compositions, it's hard to go ahead. The area that came under the jurisdiction of the newly born states, such as Punjab, Sindh, and NWFP, were dominated by feudal mode of production. They were extremely backward, non-industrialized, agrarian provinces. Balochistan, which was later merged into Pakistan in 1948, despite having massive unexplored minerals, was economically even worse. Losing Calcutta, the jugular vein of Bengal, the eastern wing too became a market for the production of raw material only. The cash-strapped country looked to India for its share left by the British. Indian bourgeoisie, thinking the new state unviable, was also bent upon bringing to its knees. Jinnah, scared of Indian aggression, refused to accept the partition of country before the division of the army that could guard Pakistan. His insistence forced Mountbatten to divide the army in haste. Muslim soldiers, actually, Indian soldiers were mercenaries. They fought for the British. So there was no exception. They had no patriotism, sort of a thing. So once Muslim soldiers were segregated from the Hindus and Sikhs, and a Muslim-dominated Pakistan army came into being. Now, it's coming to, we are moving towards Pakistan's actual role, for which it was created. In a way, I mean, I'm not denying the other social conditions, which played an instrumental role as well. But the dominant things were, as we read in the history and go through it, we find that it was the division which had strong backing of the Britain. So there were definitely support coming from the imperialism. Now, coming to my paragraph, Pakistani ruling class, eager to consolidate its security by joining the anti-communist bloc, sent Lai Ali first and later Feroz Khan Noon to the US to seek $2 million to strengthen its army. Jinnah's request was rebuffed by the Washington's administration. The Kashmir imbroglio furthered the frustration of the Pakistani ruling class. Instead of passing his power to his premier, Jinnah created the post of a cabinet secretary and made Chaudhry Muhammad Ali an all-powerful figure in the Pakistani administration. The bypassing of his premier led to an alternative power structure led by the civil military bureaucracy, which promptly took over the reign of power, sidelining the political administration, which later culminated in 3 martial laws. Now, as Shakespeare says that uneasy lies the head which wears the crown. But over here, the crown ever since lies on the head of the army backed by the American ruling elite. The former has drawn Allah along, with or without his willingness, to give legitimacy to its repressive rule. Unlike Shakespeare, the head of the armed forces that continues to rob the crown from the masses is not lying uneasy. On the contrary, following the dictates of the metropolitan capital, it hastened to start the process of austerity, privatization, and rationalization, which won the journals the personal booty at the cost of the people whose lives were ruined. Sometimes under the compulsion of metropolitan capital, the army temporarily hides behind a veil, passing the power to the puppets to follow an Orwellian Western inscription of liberty, equality, and fraternity, but its meaning of infantry, cavalry, and artillery are obvious to all and sundry. With an unending history of the army's absolute control over the reign of the power, the legitimacy of the state power wielders, no matter if they are in the guise of an army dictator or a civilian Caesar, their hegemony and the state authority have become scar-faced, if not outright illegitimate in the eyes of the people. For every cycle of elections teaches them the identical lesson that regardless of the leader, the power base remains in the hands of metropolitan capital and the GHQ. One major dissent by a civilian authority is likely to withdraw the consent of the real rulers, who can replace one set of the ruling class with the identical one, waiting in the wings, eager to adjust itself to suit the designs of its mentors. Hence, the uneasiness of the ruling class is limited to winning the nod of the two visibly invisible gods, the metropolitan capital and the men in khaki. Living constantly under the shadow of hates, with the barrel of a gun on their temples, Pakistani society has failed to develop the social base and the historic conditions for developing bourgeois democracy. In the absence of economic content, the Orwellian Western democracy has already become a fetish, an excuse to invade the countries of the global South to grab their resources. People of the global South are fully conversant with the outcome of the imposition of democracy from Iraq to Libya, and once the countries chosen to be fed on a farce of democratic diet are squeezed dry, the Western imperialist powers and the international capital walk away, leaving anarchy behind. Being a creation and a creator of history, people learn from their experience. That is why, despite having frequent elections in the post-Zia period, the deteriorating economic conditions of the people of Pakistan have left them with little appetite for this futile exercise, unless, yes, this is important, unless they are charmed by a charismatic man of destiny, I mean Imran Khan, who has nothing special in his kit. But as Marx says, now this is very important, I would like to add, because this sentence I always like what Marx has actually said over here. But as Marx says, resistance too long, prolonged in the besieged camp, is demoralizing itself, not because of continual danger that tempers, but of the chronic danger that destroys. The same tragedy has struck the people of Pakistan. They have lost the vigor and hope to fight against the system. The thought of individual sin leading to the current dismal state has been embedded in their minds. The ahistoric thought is continuously garnered in their souls through religious doublespeak. It is the replica of Zion Nazi propaganda. Fully aware of their limitations, the political parties and the power holders have been playing a grotesque game from the beginning, when instead of making a constitution, their predecessor introduced the objective resolution on 12th March 1949, stressing upon the people to follow the religious tenet zealously and do their duties earnestly and honestly in a thoroughly dishonest system. The religious-based ideology is an attempt to shift the responsibility of changing the material condition of the people to a metaphysical arena, where individual piety, instead of a collective effort, is given significance for changing the material realities of life. It not only gives logic to the state to manage its affairs through coercive means, but also provides a more muscle and authenticity to the repressive operators of the state to subdue all contradiction in the name of faith. The present crisis in Pakistan is not the reason, but the outcome of these irreconcilable contradictions. Despite the religious jugglery in the beginning, Pakistani state was keen to industrialize Pakistan, but the effort failed to build a productive bourgeoisie, for it did not develop under the logic of capitalist mode of production, but generous support and subsidies provided by the state to completely non-professional and vulture-minded people with little or no experience of business. Like any other bourgeoisie, it was created, financed, and maintained by the state by selling the fully established public assets for pennies. But its failure to convert itself into a productive bourgeoisie was due to its constant and unceasing dependency on financial support from the state to provide it with the cheap money which never came to an end. The monopoly business houses, such as Adamji, Daud, Asfahani, and others, relied heavily on state finance institutions such as PACIC and National Investment Development Bank of Pakistan, which depended upon foreign investment, which was the credit, but tied credit actually. Those credit had strings attached to them. The most exploitative were the ones that forbade broker market to buy the product of industries from any other country, but from the metropolitan countries that gave the credit. The process of building crony capitalism continues to this date. It was the major reason that the product of Pakistani capitalism remained uncompetitive in foreign market. The West, now I'm coming to East Pakistan, former East Pakistan, Bengal, or Bangladesh today. The West colonized, West means the West Pakistan, colonized the Eastern wing, selling them 40% of Pakistani manufactured products at 150% higher than the prevailing world market price. The election of 1954, held for the Provincial Assembly of the Eastern Wing, wiped out the Muslim League completely, which manifested the extreme dissatisfaction of Eastern leadership from the Western one. The new chief minister, A.K. Fazle Haq, if you go and recall, A.K. Fazle Haq presented the Lahore resolution, and he was called Lion of Tiger of Pakistan. So he demanded to have a free trade relation with West Bengal. Within a couple of weeks, he was removed from the premiership of Eastern Bengal on the charges of subversion. By 1964-5, 84% of Pakistani manufacturing relied heavily on protection. And on average, Pakistani products were sold in the domestic Eastern Wing market at exorbitant prices. With the fall of East Bengal, the capitalist economy withered away. The West Pakistani capitalists gave up their industries to Bhutto's regime, which actually favored them, which brought 5 rupees worth of their unit for 33 rupees. And that is a quote from Ijaz Ahmad, actually. It was less a nationalization, but more a favor to the non-productive bourgeoisie that took its capital abroad. Pakistani crisis has always been three-pronged: economic, ideological, and institutional, which have overwhelmed the superstructure, which means the army, the bureaucracy, the judiciary, and the political parties. Neither has any socio-economic program, which in turn has deepened the crisis of the economic base. Each political party in power, which with scarce resources struggles to solve it, but failing to do so, ends up blaming the previous regimes, but not the system whose beneficiaries they all are. On the economic front, Pakistan heavily relies on borrowed-led economic growth. Pakistani army received its first IMF tranche in 1958 under the Ayub regime, when the US found Pakistan's utility against the Soviets. The flying of U-2, a spy plane, against Russia from Peshawar, shot down by the Soviets, was the beginning of the conflict between the Soviet Union and Pakistan. The US aid flew to Pakistan. Zia discovered Afghan jihad, and later Musharraf enriched himself and the army through war in Afghanistan, not only by receiving US dollars, but also by selling innocent Pakistanis to the CIA as members of Al-Qaeda for more dollars. Once the US pulled out of Afghanistan, Pakistan army lost its utility. The Saudi UAE nexus has virtually recognized Israel and is building its relation with Iran and Syria. These countries do not need the service of Pakistan army as personal guards and mercenaries anymore. In scarcity, the journals are leaping on their half-starved citizens. The rift between all three institutions is too obvious to be overlooked. The army has purged itself from the political elements supporting a different political party. Once it's blue-eyed, I'm talking about Tehreek-e-Insaf, after taking a public oath not to participate in politics in the future. The judiciary is purging the undesirable in its ranks. The extremely corrupt and disgraced politicians are busy fighting to win the backing of the army's favor that can scarcely fight with the enemy, but is always prepared to help disappear, kill, and mutilate its non-conformist citizens. The borrowed-led growth is leading Pakistan nowhere. The technologically illiterate bureaucracy is another major factor of the status quo. It impedes any attempt to bring any structural changes that are likely to curtail its perks. The land tycoons are running scot-free, So are the sugar and paper mafias. The gravity of economic situation is fathomed by the deprivation of 90% of people from basic health and education facilities. The clean drinking water is available to those who can afford to buy Nestle as a Zionist product or others of its ilk or kind. Nearly 38% of children are having stunted growth. Every year, near 500,000 children die of malnutrition. Uprising and unrest in Balochistan are real. The Baloch movement is led by a new enlightened and educated generation, and not by the obsequious, compromising Sardars. Gilgit-Baltistan is also in turmoil. The army's direct and brazen intervention in recently held election has eroded its constituency in Punjab, seething in anger. Despite purges, the army itself is polarized and divided both vertically and horizontally. Barring the false slogan of army chief, no foreign country, not even the local capitalist class, is ready to invest in Pakistan. Even China, Saudi, and other Muslim countries, so-called Imam, have left them to dance to the tune of the IMF. Consumption without production ultimately affects the exchange rate. The massive devaluation of the rupee not only reduces the value created by the native workers, both in the national and international market, but also leads to a sudden fall in consumption. The power sector's circular debt, only circular debt, is in trillions, compounding the plight of the people already crushed by nearly 40% inflation. Now, this is the latest picture which the writer has presented to us. Pakistan debt to GDP ratio is already above 70%. And the IMF and credit rating agencies estimate that the interest payment on its debt will soak up 50% and 60% of the government's revenue this year. That is the worst ratio of any sizable economy in the world. Analyst from Telemer says the country's problem is primarily domestic debt, which comprises around 60% of its debt stock and 85% of its interest burden. Pakistan's external debt stock, denominated largely in dollars, is also heavily skewed towards bilateral and multilateral creditors, which comprises roughly 85% of the total. If the present trend of living upon a rentier economy continues, which has a remote and grim possibility to end, the country is likely to meet the fate of Afghanistan. Alternatively, it may end up balkanized, not unlike Yugoslavia, or linger on as a banana republic run by an army with a pistol at people's temple. Not a good omen for its neighbors and the world at large, unless the people of Pakistan decide to take their future into their own hands. But they are the ones on whom the nuclear bomb tested by the army has fallen. And for now, they appear to be nothing but the mutations. The future of Pakistan does not seem sanguine, if not completely dark. The concept of strategic depth, the maintenance of hegemony by the military in civilian affairs, its monetary scams, and to grab a large share in exchequer have come home to roost. People fighting for their livelihood have no appetite for the non-existent Indian threat, expansion into Afghanistan, or skirmishes with Iran, hence the need for a large army. Even the army has pushed the Kashmir agenda off the table. While analyzing the economic, institutional, the ideological crisis of state power, the Marxist theorist Ijaz Ahmed wrote that these crises have exacerbated the crisis of the legitimacy of the state itself, to the extent that the perennially unspoken question of Pakistani politics, whether the state of Pakistan is itself worth having or not, is being asked more openly and rather frequently. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saulat Nagi. Now we can take questions. Now we can take questions. So if anyone has anything to contribute or ask, please go to the reactions section and put up your hand, or please type it out in the chat. Thank you. There doesn't seem to be anything coming right away, but I have a few things. So if I'll take the privilege of asking a question myself, because at least to get the ball rolling. So I mean, what exactly has been the history of the left in Pakistan, and is there any even a possibility of some kind of a left emerging as a credible alternative, like a credible alternative force or structures to the crumbling institutions, or is it likely that the state will just end up as a failed state, like in Afghanistan, or probably even where Sri Lanka is heading? Yeah, I wonder if you could just comment on that.
The communist movement, as you know, was, to begin with, the religious question very much killed the possibility of any sort of communist question to come up. But then, of course, lots of people came from India, migrated, like Sajjad Zahir, and there were few Marxists over here who had a clean picture, and they thought that they can create the situation for socialism to make its way. But unfortunately, there was an immediate crackdown on the Communist Party. And well, it's a very debatable thing that was communists involved in the conspiracy to overthrow Liaquat Ali Khan's, the first prime minister's government, or not. I would rather think that communists can do anything, to the best of my knowledge, but they always think army as their antagonist power. And it's very, I don't think they were actually, they went to the army, and as the Liaquat Ali made a cockpit of a bull, I mean, that bull story, cock and bull story of a conspiracy of overthrowing the government, of the combination with communists and the army, General Akbar Khan and all those guys. General Akbar was never a communist. Why would he help the communists to overthrow the government unless he had his own designs? So first thing is that communists do not go to these forces. But what I could read through from the history, there are few things that happened, of course, in that time. General Akbar actually approached the Communist Party, and he said that if Ayub Khan is going to take over, Pakistan will end up in Sito Center, and Pakistan will end up in an American colony. So it was time to overthrow, the present regime, and to make a sort of a nationalist government. Now, this first thing is that nationalist government is never suitable for the communists. Nationalism is as good or as bad an enemy as it is, as fascism is actually, ultimately ends into fascism. But then, I mean, as Dr. Aisha writes about that, they had the meetings, but they were inconclusive. And ultimately, what happened was that Communist Party was they wanted to wipe out communist parties and the nationalist elements, of course. So they made a story that they were collaborating with each other, and they were arrested, and Communist Party was over in that period. There was, I mean, everyone went to the.
Excuse me, Dr. Saulat Nagi, sorry to interrupt. There is some people are finding it hard to hear. Would you mind speaking up a little bit louder?
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
thank you.
Sure, please. Actually, I was talking about that era that when the Communist Party could have dented somewhat the ruling class, but then at that particular moment of time, the class crackdown, the bourgeoisie crackdown, it was a combination of some sort of a bourgeoisie which was non-productive, and largely those landlords which jumped Congress, and they came over here to and joined Jinnah because they knew that British were leaving, and they were going to divide the country. So they jumped the wagon, and and they decided to curb everything over here, because we get a very good example that there was only one person who was from the left, and he was Iftikharuddin. And Iftikharuddin was in the cabinet, and he wanted to nationalize these entire landlordism and entire lands, and he wanted to get rid of lands. And when lots of migrant came from India, he told the assembly members that the wealth should be distributed, at least land should be distributed among those landless people who have no place to live. But he was forced to resign. So and soon afterwards, they banned the Communist Party. Once the Communist Party was banned, everybody went home. Even Progressive Writers Association was banned. So there was no source. There was a massive crackdown. A lot of people like Hassan Nasser and those people who were working as communists or Secretary General of Communists, they were hanged, and practically hanged. And given a sort of a different reason that a 6 feet tall man committed suicide with a rope while his roof was only 5.5 meters high.
Excuse
So
me,
it was
Nagi.
such a vague thing.
We
So
have a
now,
few more questions, so could you wrap it
at
up?
present, I'm coming to at present just briefly that at present we don't have the left, organized left. We have left definitely, but we don't have organized left. Our dilemma is the same. The Trotsky and Stalin. We haven't gone out of that phase as yet. The romanticism of Soviet Revolution, and we are yet to sit together, forget that Stalin and Trotsky are irrelevant, and we have in a century away, and we have to join hands and to fight together. So that's our dilemma.
Thank you. We have two more. The first is a question by Comrade Abdul Karim, and the next is Deepak Joshi wants to ask something, and so I'll take up Abdul Karim's question first. And his question is, what do you think is the weakness of the international
You're
communist
inaudible.
movement? What are your comments on?
I could not hear the question really. Please, will you kindly repeat?
What do you think is are the weaknesses of the international communist movement, and what are your views?
Actually, it's all quite obvious to everyone that fascism is replacing everywhere because Marxism has retreated badly after the fall of Soviet Union. We are facing the dilemma. We have lost our destination or destiny. We are unable to analyze, and perhaps that was one reason that USSR never left the parties and people to think on their own. They gave the philosophy and then asked them to follow that. So now we are still after the fall of the Soviet Union, we are yet in the bewilderment what to do with the philosophy. And then, of course, there's a lots of state terror. There's lots of coercion against the communists. You see what's going on in Ukraine. They banned all the communist parties. And so is, the Communist Party of Russia is existing, just because Putin needs it. Otherwise, I don't see. So this entire left is disorganized. I think the capitalist anarchy has hit the socialist, the communist as well, and everywhere. Once USSR was gone, we are left. Without any planning really to join hands. For instance, we have a movement in Paris, and we have the yellow vest, and we have a movement in Greece, but they don't join each other. They individually fight their movements, but they don't feel that we have to join with each other. We are a chain of events, and unless there'll be a chain of events, there'll be a revolutionary change.
Thank you very much. Now, Deepak Joshi would like to ask a question or make a contribution, whichever.
जी
I'll hand it over to Deepak Joshi.
जी आदाब शौकत साहब. We have recently witnessed, of course, through news
Sorry, I
reports and
can't
on
hear.
television.
Could you speak louder or move closer to the mic?
We have recently seen an election happen in Pakistan, where the candidates backed by Imran Khan's party, Tehreek-e-Insaf, won the largest block of seats. How do you think this is going to play out over the next, in the coming days? The formation of government and a government which will be as a result of a hung parliament. So how do you think this will play out?
Actually, Pakistan is having hung parliaments ever since Zia left the scenario. We had sort of a weak governments. First Benazir, then alternatively Nawaz Sharif, then again Benazir and Nawaz Sharif. Everything was being played by the army behind. Really, they manipulated the things. But this is very interesting. That Tehreek-e-Insaf phenomenon is a unique in one sense. I personally feel that Tehreek-e-Insaf is a fascist party. Imran is a man of destiny, and he thinks that what he can do, nobody else can do. But what he wants to do is to build a Riyasat-e-Madina, a obsolete concept, which never existed. Where was Riyasat-e-Madina ever existed? In fact, if we ask them, but then he's playing the religious card, and perhaps he believes in that because his third wife is, you can see how she remains covered and how, whatever they do. If I say that, if I'm categoric, I would say that Imran Khan is the face of modern, clean-shaved face of Jamaat Islami. They want to play religion. They have no agenda, no planning, no socialist idea. Rather, he's strongly anti-socialist. He opposed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's regime that made few changes, socialistic structural changes in Pakistan. For instead, made the education free. They brought health structure under their control, and again, common person had an access to health structure. Even I, as a doctor, worked in those hospitals, and we never asked any person to bring medicines from outside, at least. And we maintained within that public aid sector system. We maintained the people, we kept them, gave them the basic help and education, I mean, sort of a basic treatment. And people went very well, actually, with simple penicillins and streptomycins. We treated them, and they went very well with that. But this man has cut down even that very, I mean, that very aid or that very support going to I mean, public institutions. And he has privatized. He gave 500,000 to different private institutions, and they, I mean, to give the treatment to the patients, and those 500,000 rupees finished in a day or two, and then they had nothing else left with them. So the problem is that elections, in one way, they have shown that Punjab, for the first time, has opposed the army. Punjab doesn't want the role of army anymore in elections, and Punjab happened to be the strongest constituency of entire army base. One was Punjab, and other is NWFP. That's Pakhtunkhwa. 14% of army is coming from Pakhtunkhwa. The rest of the army was coming from Punjab. So that is the dent to the hegemony. Certainly a clear-cut dent to their hegemony. But again, they are also divided in between, because army, there's a big element of army which is sick of sharifs, and because they are ruling this country for, I mean, it looks that half a century really, and they, in one way or other way, and they are not leaving any room for anybody else. And it's strange that Pakistan army plays a Trojan horse, changes the Trojan horse today with Nawaz. Tomorrow, its romance goes with Imran, and third day, its romance goes back to Nawaz Sharif. So even people are sick, frankly. And Marx rightly pointed out that the sickness of the system is actually sickness of the people that depicts the sickness of the system. So there is something wrong with the system, which people are failing to understand. They are actually voting for their own deprivation. They're voting, they want to have their own rights, basic rights of health, education, for jobs, really, employments and all that, and a dignified life, with or without elections. I mean, they hardly matter. But this was one thing that dented. That's I'll use the Gramsci's term. It was a passive revolution, sort of a Gandhian type of passive revolution which took place over there, and people rejected Nawaz Sharif and all those People's Party and all those guys who were actually running the country from the last 50 odd years in one name or the other, but actually in the name of army.
Thank you, Dr. Saulat Nagi. We have one more question from Sarat Kumar. He's asking for what do you think are the similarities in the religious politics between India and Pakistan?
Religious politics? Will you kindly speak a bit loud? Sorry,
about the religious politics.
Yeah, actually, I have already said that Imran's party is the modern, clean-shaved face of Jamaat Islami. It's no different, really. I can't see any difference between these parties. And even, Imran wanted to make an alliance in Pakhtunkhwa with Jamaat Islami to form a government, even now, even this time. But then, since he refused to form any alliance with Jamaat Islami in the center, they refused. Jamaat refused them. So actually, religion is, the domination of religion is the religion of domination. I mean, Marx very categorically said that you take away the domination and religion is finished. So in Pakistan, religion is being used as a card. I mean, it's only a card. People don't vote for them. People don't vote directly. I mean, if Imran comes with a single agenda that he wants to implement Islam only, nobody would have voted for him. But he came as a counterforce to the army. He spoke against army. He came as a counterforce to the army. People voted him as a counterforce to the army, not for his religious credentials. So I think religion is part of the Pakistani superstructure, but it's an economic base. It's not popular among the people. Otherwise, people won't vote for them. People don't trust them as politicians, but they just vote for them. They don't vote for them, but they just follow their the traditions and the religious orthodoxies and all that. They follow that. That's true with everywhere. That's, I think, true with India at the same time now. People listen to BJP, but I don't know how far they actually support BJP in the sense of religious sense. But it's their economic sense. They might be thinking that it can give a better relief to the people. So religion is an instrument everywhere, and it is being used by the bourgeoisie against. For instance, blasphemy law. Look at the very famous Pakistani blasphemy law. It's an instrument I can use against you and take over your land, burn your field, and take away your land and occupy it. It's a commodity. It can be used as a force of revenge. So any religion is itself a commodity, and in Pakistan, it's also a commodity. We use it for our own ends. And when it is not necessary, we don't follow it, really.
Thank you very much. Now, Comrade Rao wants to ask a question. I'll hand it over to him.
Hello.
Hello, comrade. How are you?
Fine, comrade. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see
comrade.
you. Yeah, great here.
Yeah, my question is, what is the class nature of the state of Pakistan? Or what class or classes have power over the state of Pakistan?
Very interesting question, actually. I was expecting it earlier, actually. The class composition of Pakistani politics is very strange. Look, as far as Punjab is concerned, we just see the population because Marx has pointed out one beautiful thing, that capitalism has made this population a commodity. It sells them, it destroys them, it makes them according to its needs. Now, this is very interesting. And he says that where is the capital? Where the largest amount of capital is present, you can find the largest population over there. Now, Pakistan, look at the Pakistani population. How much it is? Maybe 250 million or roughly. And out of that 250 million, around 140 to 150 million comes from Punjab, because there is a lot of capital over there. Now, that capital employs lots of labor, and because it needs unemployed army of labor, and it can make them redundant, and it can reproduce them, and it can pressurize them to lower the wages and all that. So Punjab has a lot of population, a lot of people. Capital, entire capital of Pakistan is actually absorbed by Lahore, which is the capital of Punjab, and Punjab itself, and then in Sindh, in Karachi. These are the two places. If you take out Karachi from Lahore, from Sindh, Sindh's population is pretty less. What you call 6 crore, and nothing more than that. And while Punjab has 14 crore population. I mean, this is a huge one, really. So and Balochistan is going in a negative population because there is no capital. I mean, whatever minerals they create, they're picked up by the army or the ruling class, and that's being sold to China. I mean, China is the biggest investor over there, and there are a few other companies as well. But that money goes somewhere else. So this is very important to note that according to Marxist theory, capital is that's the Punjab is bourgeois, completely bourgeois. In that terms, it has become controlled by the bourgeoisie. It is a capitalist completely. Karachi is capitalist, but the interior Sindh is still having those feudal classes where the Tories are ruling, like People's Party is still in power over there. And they are all feudals. So interior Sindh is still in the grip of the feudals. As far as Balochistan is concerned, Balochistan is completely in control of Sardars, and it is even a step backward. And that is where Marx says that uneven growth of capitalism comes into work. There is lots of uneven development, but now the younger generation of Balochistan who have studied from the universities, they are coming up very strongly, and I think they are more aware, more emancipated, more leftists than what is coming from Punjab. So NWFP is like a bourgeois state. It has gone into it has become part of capitalism. So Punjab, and we can categorically classify that Punjab and NWFP are capitalists. NWFP will never go back to Afghanistan, as they talk about Durand Line and all that nonsense, blah blah thing, but they never want to go to Afghanistan because nobody would like to go back to a Sardari Nizam. And that backward system of living. They're already in capitalism. They would like to pull Afghanistan into capitalism, but Afghanistan is far away. So I personally believe that these two provinces have capitalism, complete capitalism, but the rest it's a comparator bourgeoisie. We should not forget it's a comparator bourgeoisie. It doesn't produce itself. It grabs the resources, utilize, for instance, land mafia is still, it's a big mafia. Even all the capitalists, they also deal with the lands, and they took over the lands, they sell them, they just keep them away. After a couple of years, it becomes very expensive, and they make either the housing projects or they just sell it away. So that's a dominant mode of production over there this sugar mafia is very prominent. All our MNAs they deal with the sugar, and all have the sugar factories. They make sugar, then they export it, and when there is a shortage in Pakistan, they re-import it, and again they re-earn it. So paper mafia, and publishing a book in Pakistan is far more expensive than going to India and get it published from there. So the bourgeois trend, bourgeoisie is there, very much there. But the fact is that it's a vulture capitalism, what we call, sort of a comparator bourgeoisie. Sindh and Balochistan are far, far behind. That's why they don't have the population.
No, what do you think? What is how you are defining about comparator bourgeoisie? And secondly, feudal economy.
I think feudal economy is even if you go to Sindh, interior Sindh, these feudals have their private jails even now, and they force the people to work for them. There's a forced labor. There's a lot of things which are typical of dark ages. For instance, in Thar is where Pakistan gets maximum of the coal. Usually there's a famine, and it's largely dominated by Hindu community, and they have. They manage somehow, and these feudals picked up their girls and convert them forcefully into some sort of a Muslim or whatever. And what sort of a Muslim are they themselves? But anyway, they just pick them up, use them, and then I don't know what do they do. But those ties are very strong. You can't go against a feudal. The votes, you cannot even cast your vote against the wishes of the feudal. So Zardaris and those guys, Bhuttos, they always win the elections from there, hands down, without doing anything. But they can't do it in Punjab because Punjab needs now traders. It's dominated by the traders now.
Thank you, Dr. Saulat Nagi. We don't have any more questions, but I would like to ask something. You said Sindh and, if I remember rightly, Sindh and Balochistan are feudal. Would you think they are feudal in the sense that there is some kind of a like a big landlords who kind of made some kind of a transition to capitalism, as in the Junkers, some kind of a Junker capital, without land being taken over by the peasant proprietors? Is it you think is it just basically a continuation of the old aristocracy, or do you think it is still the old feudal, proper feudal, in the sense of the medieval age serfdom kind of feudalism? That's just something I wanted to ask.
Yeah, it's difficult to answer this question because if we see that most of these feudals have entered into technology, and since they use technology, and they cannot be called in the typical sense as feudals. But again, they live in the big cities, and they don't themselves live in the vicinity where their land is. But somehow the relation of production are the same. They hire the worker at the same time. They do not let the wage worker go by. They do not create the proletariat in that very sense in which technology creates creates a proletariat of its own. For example, getting rid of all these wage labor and all that. No, the wage labor remains there, and it's remain a part-time wage labor, and they are being paid in the sense that the relation remains the same, that the feudal continues to act as a father in those areas. He supports them one way or the other. If in the difficult times, he will give them money and all that. But alongside, he will use that technology as well. But technology to the extent where it can gain the surplus. But at the same time, it knows that it cannot, if it is going to convert them into proletariat or wage slaves, then it will lose the control over them. So it keeps the ties in the same way, keeping half of the production through technology, rest on the wage labor, not wage labor, rather on these what we call muzares, serfs, serfdoms, a little better than serfdoms, you can say. So they keep both the things simultaneously. And they are wary of this change, that if this technology is going to take over, they are going to lose all those grips of those areas, because then they have to enter into capitalism. But Balochistan is something entirely different, because Balochistan, all the mines are controlled by Pakistan army and on Pakistani state, and they are mostly given to the Chinese firms or the foreign firms, Canadian firms, and especially, and the people of Balochistan even do not get the gas, basic, because The gas came from the place called Sui. Gas is finished in Pakistan now. We are importing it, in fact. So in that sense, they are very backward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saulat Nagi. Now, actually, this has been quite a educative experience even for me, though we have lived next door to Pakistan for all my life. Most of the developments we received have been largely filtered through the monopoly media, and so I think I'm sure a lot of the listeners in India would have benefited enormously from the insights you have provided. And thanks to everyone who joined this session. And it will be our effort to make this a bit more frequent, like we have tried to make it fortnightly. But we need to get over the initial teething problems and get the system running. And we need to have a bigger group involved as well. So if anyone would like to join this forum and help with their skills to administration or speaking or contributing their time to keep it going, please get in touch with us. And your skills, time, and effort are enormously welcome. We really look forward to more participation from the people who are listening. And if there are no more questions or contributions, I'll take this opportunity to call this meeting to a close. So just let me know if anyone would like to speak or make a contribution. If not,
I have just a comment, just a last thing. I think we would all benefit if we just hear from Dr. Saulat Nagi about his latest book, just very, few sentences telling us about the book as it's coming out, and so we can go get it.
Okay, over to you, Dr. Saulat.
Yeah, actually, the book is pretty much out. It's available not only on Amazon, and it's pretty cheap, $22. And it's 450 pages book. It has been published in Pakistan as well, but and it's pretty cheap over there, only 1,500 rupees and Pakistani rupees. So because its name is tantalizing and teasing for the state itself. The state is pretty busy in election affairs. Otherwise, it might have been, I think, might have been banned even. I don't know, because God's republics making and unmaking of Pakistan and Israel. I have mentioned all these facts. For instance, I started from Israel. That is it a nation state? And then I compared it with Pakistan. Is it a national state? Perhaps not. Both countries are. Basically, are they countries basically, or they are not? That's the first question. Are they nations or not? I don't think they are nations, because neither Pakistan wants to keep equality and even-handedness. We saw in East Pakistan. We saw the massacre which happened in Dhaka in 1971. And now, and couple of times we have seen the massacre happening in Balochistan, and even in the Bhutto's regime, which was the most so far the most ideologically left-wing sort of a party led by left-wing government. But we found that they were equally ruthless against the rights of Baloch people. And another, it's like, I would say that the missing people, when you get their dead bodies, cadavers, mutilated at night, is the same as what's going in Gaza. And it's condemnable, really. I for one will never support this sort of high-handedness, and even the Supreme Court doesn't intervene in these affairs. Nobody's bothered about that how people are suddenly disappear. It looks to me as we are still ruled by the Pinochet regime, and even person like me whose columns are being subjected to being edited, and this is happening now recently. And I mean, they select and choose, and then most of the time they deny to publish, which previously never happened, because hardly any people read English, so they were not very keen about that. But now they have become, the army has become very sensitive. It doesn't want to listen anything, even in English. So the things are terrible in those areas. Recently, Mahrang Baloch, she came out. Mama Kadir's movement was the one in which we also participated. He walked from Karachi to Balochistan, and because his son was killed, and he wanted to know about the fate of the rest of the people who were disappeared. And he was the one who opened our eyes, and he told us that there's no one in Balochistan. You can't find a youngster in Balochistan because people either send him out once he becomes 14 or 15, or he gets killed, or he's disappeared. Even Gwadar has been completely covered, and it's walled like Gaza is walled, and people are not allowed to go over there. Common people, even person like me, perhaps will not be allowed to go over there and see what's happening inside that area, which they actually they wanted to make it something like of Gulf regimes, like a Dubai or something akin to Dubai. But unfortunately, these things are happening over there, but nobody's giving a cover to all these things. And the problem is multi-pronged. I don't know whether I should go in that detail, or should I answer your question, that what I've written in the book. But this is also very sensitive to me, in fact, that we are at a state when we are standing and watching all that to happen. And I wonder that their armed struggle was crushed twice, and brutally crushed twice. Well, would they be able to restart the armed struggle? Yes, they will. They will, because there's no way. You cannot keep people under control through simple by coercion. You have to, as Gramsci says, I mean, you have to consent with, I mean, you can rule with consent, but not absolute coercion. So I think this is the time that we need to understand Balochistan's problem as from a human nature. I'm not saying that Balochistan should be separated today and become a separate country. No, I don't want any country to become separate unless the people want to express their right of self-determination. And if it is a progressive self-determination, for instance, it suits socialism. It suits our ideology that, well, if tomorrow Balochistan will be separated, we're socialist Balochistan. But I don't see there's any socialism over it. It's a tribal society. It will take ages to become sort of a capitalist society and to create those material conditions to become a sort of a separate country. But of course, the coercion should come to an end. So I have mentioned these things that we are not nations. Pakistans are not nations. We don't treat our people as a nation. Then, I mean, Qadianis, MDs, and those things, they're smaller things in the larger canvas. Well, we misbehave with our minorities. Perhaps it's very interesting thing you will find that as a Marxist and as an atheist, I can be tolerated in that society because I am a Marxist. They say that you don't believe. But an Ahmadi is not tolerated because he has another prophet. He believes in another prophet. So they say that, well, you don't believe in anything. Forget about it. You're out of our sphere. We don't mind. But as far as Ahmadis are concerned, no, they cannot be tolerated. Because they are against, they believe in something else as well, beyond our own prophet. So I mean, same holds true in Israel. For instance, Israel is a democracy. They say it's a democracy, but I love Gideon Levy's statement. He said that you cannot be half pregnant, even if you like to be sometimes. So you cannot be a half democracy. A democracy for Jews, but not democracy for the half of the people of your own country, which are actually equally half of I mean, their number is equal to the number of Jews. So he says that you cannot be a democracy, half democracy. So Israel is a security state. If you read Herart's and its columns, I actually had been reading Herart's for a very, very long time and following them. And I followed Ilian Pepe, Finkelstein, and Lenny Bernier, and then Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal. I mean, there were so many. Actually, in this book, I did not mention any of the Palestinian, any comment of the Palestinian origin person. I love Rashid Khaldi, but I did not quote Rashid Khaldi. I quoted all the leftist Jews, even Benny Morris, who is not a leftist, who is a Zionist, and who says that what we could not complete in 48, we should have completed there and then. If it was not possible at that time, now we should complete it. So it's basically it's a Zionist state, and there is a difference between Zionism and Judaism. We have to be very clear about that. My leaders like Karl Marx, like Rosa Luxemburg, Zinoviev, Kamnev. There's a long list of those people. They were all Jews, but they were Bolshevik Jews, and so I would say that same holds true for Pakistani Islam. I mean, we were cultural Muslims. This sort of a fundamentalist Slavist Islam has nothing to do with the cultural Islam we actually had. And once we create a state in its name, we are bound to fall into the abyss. That's Nietzsche's abyss of degrading ourselves, because we have no solution to our problems. And when we have no solution to our problems, we will try and search them in those in religions. That, well, you are a sinner. I mean, we Muslims do not act on what Quran says. So we are suffering, and God is angry with us, and we are getting the resentment. So we are being victimized because we do not act on God's injunctions, His orders. We don't follow them. But this is not Islam, basically. Islam is not monolithic. Islam, if we see in the Arab world, it's a different Islam. If we see Islam in South Africa, it could be entirely a different version. Ali Dashti has written a beautiful book, The 23 Years, and his Islam was entirely different. And if you read that, I think you will come to know what sort of Islam he is presenting, and how he's secularizing it, really. So I don't believe that this Slavist Islam was the Islam which was, as Samir Amin categorically said in his books, and repeatedly said that this kind of Islam which came in Pakistan was not possible without the help of America and Saudi Arabia. And this Saudi MBS has admitted to it, that since America wanted that kind of Salafist Islam, we pushed it in India and in Pakistan. So this is not the version of Islam we believe in, or we have ever believed in. So Zionism and this Pakistani Zionism, they're equivalent actually. Then again, our both states are security states. I mean, the army rules in fact, you cannot deny anything to army in Israel. Each time, Gideon Levy says that each time army goes to Gaza, it demands more, and we have to surrender our basic necessities to enhance the budget of the army. And no, there's no single prime minister which can deny them what the army wants. Same holds true with Pakistan. I mean, in Pakistan, army doesn't want to ask anything from the prime minister. They can do whatever they want to do. So these are, I mean, there are 30 different sort of things which actually I have come up with, but it's a long story. In short, I think these are the things which I would like to mention over here. Then we are not no one's allies like Israel. We are no one's allies. Israel, I've quoted that incidence of USS Liberty when in 1967 war, Israel attacked USS Liberty and actually nearly destroyed it. And while knowing that it was American, and so Pakistan had been doing the same with in Afghanistan, playing a dual game with Pakistan Army, playing the dual game with the army, American army. That, well, this is how it is. For instance, once Chavez said very clear, that's a beautiful statement actually. Chavez once said that I came out of the conference and Musharraf was there, and he said that he's a strange man. He said that Chavez, we do the same what you do, but we do in a way that that America doesn't get dissatisfied from us. So we play the double game. So he said, look at that. That the Pakistani strongman is saying that we deceive them. Yes, we cheat them, of course. And so Israel is openly doing the same. I mean, they have done so many things. For instance, when they got rid of when Ariel Sharon pushed the Jews from Gaza and forcefully, and was going to visit America. This is written by Max Blumenthal in the management of savagery. That he sat in the in the aeroplane and he continued to wait. He demanded the American president to give him the permission to make settlements in West Bank. For this favor, he took out the Jews from there and from Gaza, but he wanted to put them in a very, very well constructed houses in West Bank. Until he did not allow, the president did not allow him to do that. He continued to sit in the aeroplane. He refused to travel. So I think this is I mean, exploitations are these two nations are doing these gimmickries with Americans, and Americans know that, and Americans like to play such gimmickries with them. They enjoy that.
Thank you, Dr. Saulat Nagi. This has been quite a very fascinating meeting. I think we can probably agree that in the stage of late imperialism, every bourgeois country is becoming fascist, but probably the West countries in the West, like Australia, UK, they're probably falling from a greater height, while countries like India and Pakistan are like the canaries in the mine. So I think we have an interesting problem here that the relatively backward working class of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all those countries, they have actually to leapfrog politically and organizationally and theoretically over the more advanced workers of the West. So I think that's an interesting conundrum we are facing. Yeah.
But still, this is interesting, comrade, that I feel myself closer to Indians rather than Australians, because we are one. We had always been one culturally, I mean, thought-wise. I mean, practically, we share the language, we share the food. Our cuisine is the same. I mean, tastes are the same. Our thoughts are almost similar. So I don't find myself closer to the West. Rather, I'd like to be closer to the East. But unfortunately, my grandfather migrated, or my father migrated from Amritsar, and they had a vivid memories all the time. But I cannot go back and see Amritsar, the place where my family is buried. So this is very unfortunate that being a Pakistani, I've lost the right of going there. But anyway, this is how capitalism works. This is how it divides people.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the participants who have joined us. And thank you, Aishwarya, for going through all the hassle of sorting out the technical issues and glitches. And I think we'll conclude with this, which we don't have any more questions or queries. And thank you very much, Dr. Saulat Nagi, for sparing so much time and giving
Thank you very much for having me, actually.